If you're a dog parent that has more than one pup and you are taking them for walks, one of my favorite things to recommend is a hands-free dual dog leash that doesn't tangle. I've talked about it in lots of other videos, and it basically boils down to it's a belt that you wear around your waist, and then it clips with a coupler so that as your dogs are walking, as the ropes are moving back and forth, it's just going to twist with that coupler link so that they do not get tangled. Now, the problem with this is that usually when you're getting those hands-free leashes with the dual dog couplers, it is going to be a very short leash. So the first couple times that I use this with my pups, especially while we were at the beach, my dogs would be going and looking and sniffing and seeing all the things, but because the leash, the end of the leash where they were attached to the coupler was so short, they kept banging into each other because they didn't have space to separate from each other. So if one tried to move, the other got jerked along with them. So it's really important if you're using a hands-free dual dog leash to adapt it a little bit. Now, keep in mind, not everybody is going to be suited for a hands-free leash. If you are not physically capable of walking both of your dogs with that belt around your waist, please don't do it. Because if your dogs are going to get distracted or if they're going to pull, if they could knock you over, you can't really unclip that very easily and you might get dragged. So for safety reasons, if you physically cannot manage this, please don't do it. Please understand what your dogs are, what they're capable of, and what you're capable of as well. Now, to tweak this, what I did was I used the belt part, the part that went around my waist, I would clip onto myself, and then I would either use the bungee part that came with it, or I would just move the coupler up and I would connect it directly to the belt, which works really well for me. So typically with these belts, you'll have like the belt and then a section and then the coupler. So it's a straight section and then it will divide into two, which is a smaller placement. For me, I want to make sure that my dogs have the ability to have a little bit of space so they can kind of move without crashing into each other every 3 steps. So I actually moved that closer up to me. I had the coupler linked directly to my belt, so they were twisting from where they were connected to me. So they had a lot of range of motion, and I could grab each of their leashes individually and move them around rather than having to tug on a single leash and then get their dual leashes. So I grabbed the coupler part and I would attach to their small section, I would clip that to a longer leash. So I just went to the store and I grabbed a longer leash. It actually has, it's not the best leash because I didn't want to get one of my fancy leashes to use in the ocean when I did this last time. So I got like a cheaper leash for this one, but for walks in the park, I used the fancier leashes. And it has a traffic handle down here. You can kind of see the seam right there. And then it has a normal handle and a D-ring so that I was able to clip that coupler, that small section of the coupler, to the longer leash. And now they had a good 6, 7, 8 feet where they could be walking in their own directions. They could stand next to me easily. With the original version, they would have to walk in front of me or we would immediately get tangled. So with this, they could walk on either side of me and none of us got tangled. We didn't have any issues. And if they kind of crisscrossed, then they were still able to not be tangled because that coupler spun around with it. It just gave them bigger length. So you can adapt your hands-free harness, your hands-free leashes to make them a little more effective for your dog depending on how they walk. If you have a tiny dog, maybe the original version is going to be great for you. They don't need a lot of that extra space. But my dogs are medium-sized dogs. They do need a little bit more space just because every couple of feet they were smacking into each other with their shoulders, not intentionally, not because they were pulling, but just by the nature of it only being so long. So giving them more freedom with longer leashes gave them the ability to kind of move around. They could comfortably walk on either side of me. We didn't have to be super connected. And if one needed to stop for a potty break or to sniff something, it wasn't going to immediately yank on the other pup. And that gave us a lot more freedom as we were able to do this. Now, there is one thing you need to be aware of if you are taking this to the ocean that doesn't apply to anywhere else. If you are using this in the park, if you're going to climb up mountains, none of that applies to this one thing for the ocean. So that is in our upcoming video. Make sure you check it out. And when that is out, I will link it in the description as well. But this is a total game changer if you're using a hands-free leash with your dog to make sure that they do not get tangled, but they still have space to function as dogs. Drop your questions down below. I will link all the things that I use in the description down below. The hands-free leash I have is fantastic and so incredibly comfortable and so wonderful. So I will link that and some of the other leash recommendations I have for you down below as well. We'll see you in the upcoming videos as we continue to help you travel with your dog, get out and do enriching things, get that exercise, and give the best life you possibly can to your pup. We'll see you in tomorrow's episode.